All right. So we talked about how all of business is just a trade of value. You give something and they give you something back, and both people feel like they're happy. Now, it's important to understand. Um, but let's talk today about how people perceive value, right? Because it's one thing if you think it's valuable, it's another thing if they think it's valuable. So we're going to talk about how you can actually control their perception and help them think that something is as valuable as you believe it is, right? So there's a concept called the value equation. Now, this is something that a guy named Alex Hormozy came up with. He synthesized a bunch of really age-old ideas about how humans perceive value when it comes to products and services, and he was able to put it into a really powerful formula that is very useful for you as a copywriter. It's going to help you understand which emotional levers to pull to help increase the value that someone perceives in a product or service, right? Now, something to keep in mind here, a significant portion of value is perceived only, right? It's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe something is valuable, you're more likely to find it valuable when you use it, right? So a big job of a copywriter is to control that perception, to increase the perceived value so that the person who then uses the product is satisfied because they came in with the correct beliefs. If they walk in the door thinking something's not going to work, it probably won't for them because their beliefs aren't correct. So it's important for you to control their perceptions and increase the perceived value so that when they actually use it, they get the value that they're looking for. So let's dive into how you actually do that. So this equation that this Alex Hormozy guy came up with is that value equals the dream outcome multiplied by the perceived likelihood of success divided by the time to get that outcome and the effort and sacrifice. Now, quick note, this isn't like a numeric equation. You won't solve for value and get like a number like 17. Like that's not how this works. What this does is it shows the relationship between these concepts and how you need to manipulate their perception. When I say manipulate, real quick, the definition of manipulate is to handle with care, right? Yes, I'm teaching you guys how to manipulate people and to help them and serve them with the utmost care. You're going to learn how to influence their emotions and how they perceive things. So, yes, I'm teaching you how to manipulate, use it for good, not for evil, right? But again, these are the elements that you need to control in order to change the way that they perceive the value, right? Now I'm going to go over each of these and what they are, what they mean, right? Let's go over the top one. Obviously, to increase the value here, you want to increase the top part of this fraction. And you do that by increasing the dream outcome that you're promising them and by increasing the perceived likelihood of success. Another way to think of dream outcome is the actual result. What's the thing they're going to get out of using this product, watching this video, whatever the value is that you're offering to them? If Are you going to help them lose a bunch of weight? Are you going to help them get dates with the opposite sex? Are you going to help them get big and strong? Are you going to help them become wealthy? What is the thing that you're promising? The bigger and better that is, the more valuable it is, right? So if I think that this product will help me, become a multi millionaire who lives on a yacht 24/7, that might be a very favorable dream outcome, right? If some mechanism could provide that to me, I would probably like that thing, right? Perceived likelihood of success. How likely do I actually believe this thing is going to work for me, right? Even if something promises the world, but you don't believe that it's actually going to work, the value goes down, right? What someone's willing to pay or what someone actually thinks the value is for a product or service goes way down if they think it's not going to work, right? So you want to increase that. Let's talk about the bottom side. So the time to get outcome or time to result. So this outcome you promised, how long is it going to take them to use this product or service to get that thing that you want? If it feels like it's going to be a long time, it's like, hey, look, I'll teach you how to make $1 million, but it's going to take you 55 years to do so. The value of that isn't nearly as cool as if I say, hey, I can help you make $1 million in 10 days, right? The time to get that result, how quickly you get that result, how quickly you start to see that dream outcome in your life is something that that contributes a lot to the value that someone's going to perceive in it, right? The other thing is the effort and sacrifice. If I said, hey, look, I'm going to show you how to make $100 million in the course of 5 years. Okay, this is cool, but you're going to have to chop off your right leg and your left pinky, right? That's a pretty big sacrifice. It might be too much of a sacrifice. It might increase this downside part so much that most people wouldn't want to buy it, right? Wouldn't want to participate in this activity. don't blame them, right? However, if you can minimize it, if you say, hey, you don't have to change your lifestyle, don't have to change this, don't have to change that, don't have to change this, then it's going to get you a lot of value. You see this a lot of times, like health and fitness. Like you can still lose weight while eating the foods you love. Hey, you don't have to sacrifice this thing. That's them consciously increasing the value by decreasing the perceived effort and sacrifice, right? Now, let's talk about a few important notes here with this equation. This is all about perception, right? So, for example, let's talk about time to get outcome because this is a really good way to do this, right? So, it all depends on what you compare it to, right? That determines how long it feels like it is to them, right? Now, if you compare, for example, let's go back to that thing, make $1 million. That's a dream outcome. It's some cool method or whatever. One way will take you 10 years. Another way would take you 1 year, and another way will take you 1 week, right? Now, if you compare 1 year to 10 years, that 1 year sounds really good. That's a tenth of the time. That's really quick. That's effective. That's the better option of the two. If you're able to juxtapose two things and say this method, it doesn't take you 100 years, it doesn't take you 10 years, it only takes you 1 year. That's perceived as more valuable of the two options, right? So if you show up and you're working with a product that takes a year to get what they want, compare it to something that takes 10 years and they're going to feel like that 1 year is a short time, right? Don't take that 10 year or that 1 year that it might take and compare it to a 1 week thing. Because if that's the case, then this now feels like the long thing and that feels like the short thing. It's all about what you compare it to. Perception is about comparison, right? It's all about comparison. So you want to compare, for example, the perceived likelihood of success. Let's say that the product has a 35% success rate, which is stupid. Success rates are kind of it's not something you really measure with products, but let's just pretend 35% success rate. Well, that's cool, right? Like, that might seem like not very much if you compare it to 100%, but if you are able to hold that up against something that's maybe a 1% conversion or success rate, man, 35% is significantly more likely, a significantly higher perceived likelihood of success. I'm going to go that route. So it's all about what you compare these things to, right? That's how you can change the perception, how you can change the perceived value, right? And this is important, right? You want people to make good decisions. I'm assuming that the products and services you are promoting are valid. They actually produce a solid result for the people that you're doing it for. If that's the case, it is your moral obligation to work with their perception to help them make the right decision by any means and all means necessary, right? If that means changing how they perceive the likelihood of success to make it look more favorable, to change, or changing the perception of time to get outcome, or changing the perception of the effort and sacrifice by comparing it to something else, making this thing look more favorable so they make that choice and actually change their life and get the thing they want, by all means do it, right? A quick note about decreasing the time to get the outcome. Some things take a long time, right? Some things take years and years and years. And that's okay, right? Like that's totally fine. That's what it takes. But if you want to make your options seem more powerful, if you can promise them a quick win. So maybe, like, for example, let's say you're trying to help someone lose 100 pounds. It's going to take them a long time, right? But if you promise them that they can lose the first 10 pounds in the first 2 weeks, because most people, when you lose 100 pounds, probably can, that's although you're like shrinking down what they're getting, you're giving them a quick emotional win. So the perceived value goes way up. And if you're just like, in 6 months time, you wake up and you lose 100 pounds. Like you can say, hey, in 2 weeks time, you wake up and you'll have lost 10 pounds. And then by the end of the year, you'll have lost 100, right? That's a lot more exciting than just saying, wait a year to get the thing you want. You can say, hey, you'll start getting the thing you want 1 week, 2 weeks, 24 hours, 5 minutes in, right? That's a quick note about the time to get outcome. Now, this is extremely important, right? You need to understand how this works. So if you want to show up and help increase the perceived value that you're providing to someone, you have to look at things through this equation. You have to look through this. And again, perception is based on comparison. Weaponize this. Use the idea of comparison to increase the things on the top and decrease the things on the bottom by comparing them to things that are either worse or better inside of their mind. And that's something we'll get into more of when we talk about how to actually structure your writing. But it's something you need to understand. These are sort of the levers you can pull to increase or decrease value, right? You might help your eventual clients do this with just the words that you use on the page. You might even give them some advice to change how their product is structured to provide more value. That's something you'll go into more in depth when we get more into talking about working with clients and specific deliverables. But you need to understand these basic principles. They are key to helping you actually increase the perceived value for your customers and for your end clients, let's say.